Hey guys, so this is gonna be something I don't, this is kind of something I don't usually do. I actually recorded this once already, and it was over an hour long, and then I realized afterwards that the audio was doubled from the game, because it was recording both my audio output and my recording directly from my retro tank. Anyways, besides the point, this is gonna be kind of a brief overview. I'm gonna go over, um, just kind of the basics of the greatsword. Hold on, I gotta sleep to make it daytime real quick. Just because one thing that's really important with the greatsword in general is the kind of hit effects, the VFX, and uh, they're kind of hard to see at night because of the rain in the jungle. So I'm going to be showing it to you by going here and to the instructor. So I'm playing on disc, which is why everything's in Japanese. But the instructor here has these quests. And when at the very beginning of the game, you only start with kind of the main weapon classes, none of the subtypes that they added in DOS. But this will allow you to try out any of the weapon classes, even if you don't have one already. I'm going to make sure people know about this because a lot of people don't realize, because you start only with the sword and shield, right? And a lot of people don't realize that this is here, and so they don't think there's any way to try out the other weapons. That's not the case at all. So if you're not sure if you want to use a weapon, make sure to come here first and try it out, and before you invest some resources into one. So here we got the one-handed sword, the great sword, the hammer, the lance, the dual blades, the tachi, or the longsword as it's called in English, the hunting horn, the gun lance, the light bow gun, the heavy bow gun, and the bow. So all of them are here. You don't start with all of them, like I said. You start with just the main ones. I don't know exactly what it is that makes the other ones unlocked, but we're going to be going here on the Greatsword one, which is one that you will have at the very beginning. Anyways, so it is basically it is a dojo quest, which means that you will have none of your items. It will just start you with like all of the shit that they give you. But it is very useful for trying things out. So like I said, I am on disc, which means it does take a little longer to load. Just be happy that you're probably not playing this on disc. It is fine on disc for the most part, and it is the loading times that people in 2006 would have experienced. So if you're a purist, I guess you can consider it a more pure experience. Um, so I am gonna just up my stamina just so I don't have to worry about it later. So to start with your greatsword, so I am playing this on an actual PS2, as I mentioned, that I'm playing it from disc, and so I will be explaining it assuming normal PlayStation 2 controls. I know some people will be playing this on the button controls. Some people, might be playing this on emulator, and there might be some small differences in the way they have the control set up. I'm just going to explain it as if you were playing this on a PlayStation 2. So, to start, keep in mind that all your attacks are on the right stick. So, we, in essence, have, let me think here, 4, 5, 6 inputs at any moment for the greatsword. So those inputs are going to be up, down, left, right, R3 as in clicking the stick, and R1. So R1 is the special attack button on basically every weapon. So whatever weapon's like special attack, you do that by pressing R1. So for the greatsword, our special attack is just a guard. So unlike later Monster Hunter games, you don't have to do anything special to draw right into your guard. You can just press R1, even if your weapon is sheathed, and you'll just immediately go straight in. But before we go into the other inputs, I will say if you move the stick while standing still, doesn't matter if you flick it, doesn't matter if you like move it and hold it. If you move the stick and you're standing still, you'll draw your sword and just go into your kind of badass stance. So I'm pressing right now. I'm pressing square to sheath my weapon, but you can also press circle. So circle will also sheath your weapon. and so will R2, but R2 will only sheath your weapon if you are already moving. So generally speaking, any weapon, any input that would normally require you to have your weapon sheath. So, for example, using items requires you to have your weapon sheath. So, pressing square, which is the use items button, will put your weapon away. Same with circle, which is the kind of gathering or interact button. That's to interact with things. You need to have your weapon sheathed. So, pressing circle will sheath your weapon, and you also need to have your weapon sheathed to sprint. So, if you press R2 while moving, you will sheath and immediately go into a sheath or into a dash. So those are your 3 ways to sheath. That's the case too on almost every other weapon. There are some exceptions, like for example the sword and shield or the one-handed sword. If you press square with that weapon, you will just use the item instead of sheathing. So in that one, for example, you need to press circle or R2 to sheath. But for the great sword, you can do square, circle, or R2. Like I mentioned, R1 does go into your guard. It's your special attack, which for us is our guard. And you can also kind of rotate. So you'll notice I'm rotating like 180 degrees. It's because I'm inputting the stick in the opposite direction. I'm kind of flicking it right at the same time as I press R1. And you can turn. That's also true while you're sheathed. So if I'm running here and I can kind of quickly turn. So that's your signal. Every weapon has this too. You can do this by just pressing and holding down the left stick. So there I just did it the first time I did it on complete accident because I was holding the controller too hard. But yes, so keep in mind that you can. It is kind of hard to go into, for example, like a 180 degree turn because you will oftentimes, if you're not fast enough, you will just kind of slow down like I am there. And when you're in that animation, because there's no input buffer, you're not actually able to go into the dash. Yeah, so there I wasn't able to actually go into not into the dash. I wasn't able to go into the block because I was in an uncancelable animation, which is me slowing down. So let me try it though. It is hard to get, but damn, and I was able to get it really well when I was recording it before. There we go. So you can go as far as 180. It is the hardest to do 180. It's a lot easier to do like a 90 degree block like that. There we go. So that is something to keep in mind, that like if you're running away from something, and you're like, oh, shit, I'm not gonna be able to run away in time, you can do your best to try to turn around like that. If you see me signal like that randomly, it's because I'm just doing it on accident. But another thing you can do, so that's one of the actions you can do while sheath. Another one you can do is click R3. You can do a kick, and almost every weapon has this. I think there are some that don't, but I'm pretty sure almost all of them do. However, one thing that's unique to Greatsword is that you can also kick while you have your weapon out. So this kick is a lot faster. It helps a lot if you want to kick a teammate to get them on a stun, things like that. But so those are 2 of our inputs. So far we've gone over R1 and R1 and R3, which is kick and guard respectively. Or not respectively, the other way around. R1 is your guard, R3 is your kick. So we have 4 other inputs, which is up, down, left, and right. So I'm going to start with left, and that will go into your wide slash. So this attack, very useful against small monsters, especially when you're being surrounded. Do not underestimate it. If we go right on the stick, it'll do your upswing. Some people are probably confused why right is an upswing. It's because it's because you kind of start from your right side, for the most part. But yes, and you can combo these 2 attacks together, as well as you can combo into your 2 other attacks. So up on the stick is going to be your overhead slash, and down on the stick, I'm just going to flick it, is also an overhead slash, except for no. If you hold down, you can go into a charge. So there, I just held down to the maximum. If you hold it down all the way, it will just attack automatically after a certain point, and that automatic attack is the strongest out of all the levels. So you have different charge levels. So you'll notice that there's an aura around my character, and a flash, as well as like a sound. And that sound and that flash indicates my charge level. So if I hold it down and let go before that first flash, that's just an uncharged attack. It's basically the same as if I just done an overhead slash, except for I waste more time. I think it might be marginally stronger, but it might as well just be an overhead slash, as far as you're concerned. If I let go after that first slash, you do a level 1 charge. This one does do more damage than a normal attack, but there's not very much reason to ever use this attack unless you started charging and then you realize that you're going to get hit if you don't let go. That is definitely a good reason to do a level 1, but you almost never want to, you're never trying to do a level 1. However, if you do another flash, you'll do a level 2. And you'll notice that when you let go, now, there's like a little aura around you when you release the stick as well. This will happen no matter what timing you do, as long as you're at least the level 2 charge. However, there is a secret hidden level 3 charge. Now, this might be weird for players who are used to Greatsword in Portable 2nd / Freedom 2 and onwards. In those games, this kind of second flash will only appear if you're doing a level 3 slash. That is not the case in this game, and I want to make that abundantly clear. That flash around you when you release just means that you are doing at least a level 2 slash. A level 3 slash on the... Oh, hold on. Alright, sorry about that, I just got a phone call. Great, now I don't remember exactly what I was saying, but... yes, if you let go, it will go into a level, or that flash around your character when you let go means that you're doing at least a level 2 charge slash. One thing I should also mention is that you can roll out of your attacks. This is something that most players probably already know, but you can roll to cancel the end lag animation of your attacks. It's something that you really have to be using. There's very rare occasions where you will not want to do that, because you'll notice I can't do anything while I'm in that kind of end lag state where I'm picking my sword back up. So rolling back out of that is almost always going to be what you want to do. But one thing I was going into is that there's a hidden level 3 slash. So one thing you will notice is that I'm going to let go of the stick immediately after a level 2. And you'll notice that the hit effects around my sword, so when I hit the ground, all you see is those kind of little, like, stones, or whatever those are, that kind of fling up around my sword. And this is when I let go immediately after the second flash. However, if I hold it slightly longer than that, you'll notice now there's like a big dust cloud and like kind of like a big wind effect. So that indicates that I'm doing a level 3 slash. And there's also a special VFX that plays around, or when you hit an enemy to a different one, and I'll show you that one in a bit. But you need to keep this in mind for when you're attacking. The general timing, it's not that complicated. If you let go immediately after the second flash, you will almost always do a level 2 charge. You basically just have to hold it like less than half a second longer. So that was a level 3. So it's kind of me holding it evenly. It's like bum, bum, bum. So there I accidentally held it a bit too long and I did a level 3. But we do like bum, bum, bum. There, so if you do it just completely evenly, you will do a level 2. So you have to hold it just a little bit longer than you have to just hold it. It's kind of a unique, or not unique. It's something that kind of makes doing a level 3 charge a little bit more engaging. You have to think a little bit harder about it. Another thing I'll go into quickly, you have an infinite combo, as I've mentioned. You can go into your overhead slash. The only exception is that you can't go into a charge slash from an overhead slash and vice versa, and you cannot work kick or your guard into this combo. For those, you have to wait for the combo to finish. And you can go into, for example, you can go into a charge slash while you're comboing, like this, but you cannot go into it. So I'm going to do an overhead slash. Now I'm holding down. Even though I'm holding down, you'll notice I just go into my default idle stance because I can't go into a charge slash from an overhead slash. So I believe that's basically everything. Oh, except for the one thing I forgot to mention is that the upswing is very useful. It is kind of a meme because you will send your players flying, but it is also extremely useful because it is the one attack that allows you to reposition during your combo. During your combo, aside from charge slash. So charge slash and upswing, I believe, are the only two that will let you reposition. So here I'm holding right on the left stick. So you'll notice I still just keep going straight. But the moment I input an upswing, now I'm facing at a 45-degree angle to the right from where I was before. So if you're fighting a monster, and it kind of moves a little bit to the right, you might want to start doing some upswings to kind of turn yourself 90 degrees, and now I might be facing the monster better. If you do an upswing and then an overhead slash, you can turn even more. But you cannot turn using an up slash or an overhead slash from a wide slash. So if I do a wide slash and then an overhead, all right. If I do a wide slash and then an overhead, you can't turn. Well, actually, one thing I just noticed, and I never actually do this, you can turn left if you do an overhead from a wide slash, but you cannot turn right, which probably has to do with the direction of your wide slash swing anyways. So that's something that's worth keeping in mind. However, I do believe... Okay, it looks like it's the same with the charged attack. So you cannot turn right with a charge attack, but you can probably turn... Yeah, you can turn left. Another thing, unlike later games, you cannot reposition your charged attack, slash, once you start it. So now I'm holding right, and you'll notice it does nothing. In later games, you can kind of reposition 45 degrees or so by inputting a direction, and then it will change the direction that your slash actually hits. So you have to be a lot more careful. It's a little bit more rigid. And you have to be a lot more careful about where you hit. So now I'm going to go over here to kind of demonstrate some things. So there's some moss swine here that I can kind of show some things. So first thing I'll do is I'm going to show you what a level 3 slash looks like, charge slash looks like on an actual monster. So here this is going to be a level 2. So he's going to move, of course, which is why it's so important to keep things in mind. So now I'm going to actually wait for when he should be... Yeah, there we go. So there, you'll notice he dies in one hit, but there's nothing special about it, right? You just see like a bunch of blood. But if I do a level 3 charge on this one, and I'll wait for him to move again. Normally, I would almost never recommend attempting charge slashes on small monsters, but yeah, he's going to move too far to the left. This is exactly why I don't recommend charge slashes on small monsters, but for demonstration purposes. So here, if I do a level 3, it's very hard to notice, but there's kind of this white fog of like flash around your attack. And you also get a sharpness modifier. So if there's like a really hard monster, if there's a monster that has a really hard carapace, you might want to try getting a level 3 slash on it, because it might stop it bouncing. So there, you can kind of see there's a white flash right when you hit. That indicates that you hit your level 3 slash, which is your maximum amount. And this time, I'm going to just hold down, though. And one thing you'll notice is that if I just keep holding down forever, he might move out of the way, but we'll see. Yeah, he didn't. So there was the white flash, which means that there is not an overcharge in this game. Holding it down and just letting it input manually you will do your maximum damage. The only thing that you're wasting here is time. You're just wasting time that, you probably didn't need. So unless you're purposely trying to delay your hit for some reason, like to make sure you hit the right body part or something like that, the right hit zone, in most cases, you're not going to want to hold it all the way down. And another thing I want to mention, like other games, there is a kind of hit zone on your sword that does the strongest. So you want to hit with the middle of the actual blade. The tip and the base of the blade will do marginally less damage. It's not such a big deal that like you need to like focus everything on making sure you hit with the middle of your sword, but with the middle of the blade. But it is something that's worth noting. If you keep hitting things with the tip, you will be doing less damage. Another thing, though, I want to mention is, I was going to say there's a Hermitar buried there that I can demonstrate on, is that, and this is the case for all weapons, but, it's something that's worth mentioning for Greatsword, is that there's also timing on your attacks. So, it's most noticeable on your wide slash. That's what I'll use to demonstrate it. But you'll notice, if I hit this Hermitar with the very beginning of the animation, I bounce there. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to hit it with the very, very beginning of this animation. Should have rolled there. And I'll bounce. However, if I hit it like kind of halfway through the animation or with the ending of the animation, I don't bounce. This is, like I mentioned, this is a thing on all the weapons, but so there I hit it too early. But there is timing with your attacks. It makes sense too, because if you hit it, you want to hit it with the most force of your blade. And so yeah, the same exists for all the attacks, but like for the upswing, there I bounced because I hit it with the very beginning. But if I kind of go a little further back, there I didn't bounce because I hit it with the middle. And the Hermitard, I'm pretty sure it's all one hit zone. So it's not because I hit a harder hit zone or anything like that. Another thing, though, I want to mention, and I'm going to go onto the island here in Area 10 to demonstrate this, is that when you bounce, you will be able to go into your overhead slash as your next attack. Not your charge slash, just the overhead slash. But your overhead slash is your second strongest attack, counting all of your charge levels. It's just one attack. That means that sometimes when you bounce, it's not always the best choice to just like immediately stop attacking, because you go into a very fast and pretty good attack. That was a bad time to heal. So, it's not always the best option if you bounce to just immediately stop attacking. There's a lot of times where that will be the best option, but it's just something that, I see a lot of newer players just kind of assume it's the best. Your overhead slash, generally speaking, has the best timing in terms of the sharpness modifier. You'll bounce the least with your overhead slash. And your draw attack. So yeah, so there's a perfect example of where if I hadn't gone into that second bounced overhead slash, I probably would have gotten hit there. But because I attacked instead, I managed to kill it and get away without being hit there. So I think that's basically everything that I wanted to go over. I'm going to go up over to Area 7 to the Velociprey nest to clear the quest here. But that should be everything. In the video I recorded originally that I had to scrap, I also hunted a Rathian at the end to just kind of go, like, just showcase like a full hunt with it. But honestly, I don't think I'm going to do that again, because one of the glorious parts about, the Greatsword and about Dose, but about monster hunting in general, is how you can string things together, on your own. And so, in that sense, I think that, it's probably best just to leave putting the pieces together to you. Laid out the tools on the table, and it's up to you to, you know, find what you find to be the best ways to use it. Another thing I will mention, and you'll notice that I'm almost exclusively using combo GS. Another thing I should mention is that if you miss your charge attack, in almost all situations in this game, it would have been better to just use a combo attack. And that's one of the glorious parts about Dose's Greatsword, is that it strikes a very nice balance between combo GS and charge GS. Do not discount your other attacks. This game is by far the game where there's the most kind of balance between how much you want to be charging and how much you want to be using your combo attacks. So, in that sense, I do just want to make that clear. Also, there's a lot of elemental and ailment, just kind of attribute damage, greatswords in general, where it is the optimal decision to not be using your charge at all. Because as I'm sure most of you already know, but your charge attack does not increase the amount of attribute damage you do. So for example, with the Chrome Death Razor, which is a really good poison greatsword, I almost always will play where I play combo greatsword until I poison the monster, and then I will play charge greatsword until the poison wears off, and then it's just kind of a loop, you know. There's also some really good dragon greatswords where you're almost always going to be wanting to play combo GS. There's just a lot of different examples like that. Do not play this like it's a later Monster Hunter game where all you want to be doing is hitting level 3 charges. If you can do that, that's great. You know, if you hit level 3 charge after level 3 charge, that's not bad by any means. Go do that. But because this is also Greatsword where it is at its most rigid in general for the charges, and where it can oftentimes be the hardest to tell if you're even going to hit a level 3 charge. Because remember, this is the first game that ever had a charge attack for the Greatsword. Because of those reasons, if you are not sure, if you're not 100% sure that you are going to be able to hit a level 3 charge, it is almost always a better decision to just hit it with a normal combo attack. There are, you know, always going to be exceptions. And, you know, so don't take any of my advice as kind of a catch-all. But in general, I think that you should try to find that good balance for you until you get better and are able to, you know, hit a lot more charged attacks. So, yeah, in the original video I recorded before, I also kind of went over some very brief things about some of the other weapon classes. I think the only thing that I said in that video that that I had to scrap, that I will go over again, is just kind of a reminder that some of the weapons are kind of subtypes. So part of why I went into this in the other video is because I mentioned that this is one of the Monster Hunter games, and this is true of just first and second gen Monster Hunter in general, specifically the PS2 games, but you know, it's also true to a lesser extent for the first and second gen portable games. You will be rewarded for mastering multiple weapon classes. Greatsword is in fact one of the ones where you could very easily get by only using Greatsword. There's very few situations where Greatsword is just not very good, but still, the game was very much balanced with this idea that different weapons are basically different tool sets that can be, you know, variably useful in different situations. And so, for example, Rajang is an example of where Greatsword is very difficult to use correctly. Of course, you can, if you're good enough at the game, you can easily fight a Rajang with Greatsword, but it will be a lot harder to learn how to do that than it would be to learn how to fight Rajang with, for example, a Sword and Shield or Dual Blades. That being said, the inverse is true. Sword and Shield, for example, has a lot of monsters where you can just bounce it a lot against, or Dual Blades doesn't have a shield, so there are some very fast monsters. You know, there are probably some people who will find it a lot easier to fight Rajang with Sword and Shield instead of Dual Blades, so specifically because of the shield. because Rajang has some attacks that come out so quickly, that you're not going to be able to dodge them, unless you're really good at the game. And so for that reason, I do recommend, and of course you're free to ignore my advice. It's your game. You can play it however you want. But I do recommend that you try some other weapons. And that kind of leads me to mentioning that think of the weapons like the Tachi or the longsword and the hunting horn and the dual blades and the gun lance. Think of them as subtypes. In essence, the way this game treats them is as a subtype of the weapon that they branch from. So, for example, gun lance, absolutely terrible elemental. That's in part because, in terms of like just the balancing, there's two elemental gun lances in the entire game. Part of that is because the shelling damage always does fire, but another big part of that is because there's a bunch of elemental lances, and they kind of treat it all as one kind of weapon class with two subtypes within it. And so the longsword in that sense is in essence a type of greatsword. A lot of players know this too, that like to the point where a lot of the longswords in this game were originally greatswords in first generation before the longsword weapon class existed. So don't, if you feel like you're being you feel like you're nerfing yourself by only using greatsword. Excuse me. If you feel like you're nerfing yourself, feel free to try other things. Modern Monster Hunter games are very obviously designed in a way where they're supposed to, feel good that you can use anything. And, that's fine, and that's well and good, but that's not really the kind of philosophy this game has, where it expects you to, weapons have actual downsides in a way that they oftentimes will not in 5th gen. Obviously they do, to certain extents. For example, the hammer doesn't, can't cut tails even in, a game like Rise. But that being said, there's just going to be a lot more downsides to certain weapon classes in this game than you would find in a later one. So if you are using only greatsword and you feel like shit's getting hard, my advice is to try some other weapon classes. And remember, you can go to the Hunter's Dojo here in the village and try out the other weapon classes. You do not need to make one. You don't need to use your resources, that can be so precious in this game, on making a new weapon just to try it out. You can go to, the training, to the Hunter's Dojo and do the tutorial quests for the different weapon classes. So that, I believe, it's everything I wanted to go over here. If you have any questions, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them. If there's something I forgot to go over, or if there's something you think I could have explained better, feel free to do that in the comments as well. I don't plan currently to make any of these for other weapon types. I just made this one because it's something that has been asked of me a lot, and glorious Monster Hunter player Excylis reached out to me and asked, about some specific questions, and I figured, why the fuck not? Just make a video about it. And so I don't plan to make videos for other weapons. That being said, if there is a weapon that you really want me to make a tutorial for, don't be afraid to comment it. If there's something that gets a fuck ton of comments, who knows, maybe one day I'll be like, shit dude, I feel like making a video about how to use this weapon, and so on. That being said, this video should give you all the tools that you need to kind of put things together on your own. Assuming you're not the type of player who just likes to experiment without knowing and just kind of learn things organically. You will still, not that you can't learn things organically now that you've watched a great sort of tutorial, but you know what I mean. I think that this video's been a lot of fun to make, and I hope that it helps out some new players. I hope that some of the advice I give, even if it's not about greatsword, just kind of helps you to get your footing, knowing how to adapt to kind of thinking properly with this game. And like I said, any questions, let me know, and I'll see you guys next time.